So I just spent $21.60 on the world famous Bieber strawberry glazed smoothie at Erewhon.
Will it be an Erewhon or an Erewhon?
Erewhon is apparently the world's most expensive grocery store, and it's a grocery chain that's like only in 8 locations, like in the greater Los Angeles area. And since I'm a farmer from Vermont who just happens to be in Los Angeles this week, I've seen so much press and discussion about Erewhon.
If you live in LA, then you've probably heard of Erewhon.
Why buy nachos for $1 when you can go to Erewhon and make them yourself at home for $1,000?
I'm here at the world's most expensive grocery store.
And all of this hype got me wondering.
Is the food at Erewhon, which is insanely expensive, worth the prices you pay? And from a farmer's perspective, answer the question of why does this stuff cost so gosh darn much? And so throughout this entire video, I will break down a wide variety of products and talk about why they're so expensive and whether or not they're worth it, depending on what you're buying, as well as if you're very curious about how your food is raised and where it comes from. But first, the moment of truth, let me try this Hailey Bieber smoothie. And for the record, I am Team Selena, so I feel a little bit weird drinking this. All right, here it goes. You know, it's actually pretty good. It's pretty sweet, definitely strawberry forward. The ingredients are Malk almond milk, Zuma Valley coconut cream,
Rancho Meladuco dates, vital proteins, vanilla collagen, Erewhon sea moss, Maple Valley maple syrup, hyaluronic acid, strawberries, avocados, bananas, vanilla, stevia, house-made strawberry glaze.
And like it was $18 plus I tipped and gave tax, and so yeah, it was like $21.60. It's tasty. I don't know if it's $21.60 tasty, but if you break down the list of ingredients that it has, you can kind of start to see why it would be so expensive. You know, the almond milk that they're using is actually a very high-end almond milk. It's produced in an orchard that has organic almonds. It's much more difficult to produce organic almonds versus conventional almonds because organic almonds reduce what you can do from a pest control perspective, so your yields tend to be less good, and so it takes a lot more work to produce like the same amount of almonds essentially. It actually makes for a good reason for why the almond milk at this place would be so much more expensive. The same thing with the coconut cream or crema. I'm from New England and I don't know how to pronounce anything properly. Other ingredients in this thing, like the maple syrup, for example, we produce maple syrup on our farm and it takes roughly 40 or 50 gallons of maple sap to produce 1 gallon of maple syrup. Around my part of the world, a good gallon of maple syrup produced right from the farm and purchased from the farm retail, it's gonna run you probably somewhere between $35 and $40 a gallon.
I was actually kind of curious to see how much the maple syrup at Erewhon actually cost if you bought it retail, and it turns out it's about 4 times as much if you bought it direct from the farmer.
I think the other things like the collagen, for example, that might be where the hype comes into play. You know, most collagen is usually produced by boiling down like beef skins. So like after they butcher a cow, they're boiling that down. Based on the research that I tried to do on this thing, I couldn't even find out where they sourced their beef skins from to produce the collagen.
And just to be clear, oftentimes terms like grass-fed and pasture-raised can be just used as marketing terms. You don't know exactly how these animals were raised. Sure, they might have been fed some hay at some point. That doesn't mean that they weren't ultimately brought up to a feedlot before slaughter. So unless you know your farmer, you don't necessarily know how the animal was raised.
And so despite the fact that like some of the ingredients are extremely high-end and very carefully produced and very much organic, you could also be drinking collagen that's coming from beef that's produced on a big old feedlot. And so when you consider all of the ingredients here, plus the fact that the store has to pay their workers, I'm sure the real estate here, even though I don't know even remotely what Los Angeles real estate prices are like, probably can't be all that cheap. All of those costs also go into the fact that this is a $21 smoothie.
Did you just order a $5 shake?
Mm-hmm.
You don't put bourbon in or nothing? No.
Yeah, I probably would still prefer a $5 shake.
It's a pretty good milkshake.
Told you.
Excuse me, are either of you familiar with the grocery store Erewhon?
No.
No? It's like
Erewhon?
Erewhon, it's like this high-end grocery store.
No.
No? Let me give you a little bit of history about Erewhon, which is surprisingly naive spelt backwards.
Erewhon was first started in 1966 as a market stall in Boston.
But by 1968, they'd actually moved to Los Angeles, and that's when the first store was opened. But then in 2011, this couple bought the one location that they have in Beverly Hills, and they transformed it into kind of what it is today, which is like essentially the bougiest of bougie grocery stores. Like, if you think about it, right, if you have like Dollar General on this end of the spectrum, and then you have like your standard grocery stores like a Ralph's or a Stop and Shop or a Piggly Wiggly, depending on where you live in the country. But then maybe you start to creep into the Trader Joe's territory before achieving Whole Food status. Well, the way it's always been explained to me is Erewhon is like all the way down the street on that spectrum, and it ends up making Whole Foods look like Dollar General relative to Whole Foods. Whole Foods relative. I think I said that right, but I'm sure you guys know what I mean. And when you look at the prices inside the store and look at those stickers, there are some products that will absolutely give you sticker shock.
Why the fudge-covered goji berry is something called sea moss that expensive? I don't even know what sea moss is.
And then there's also a lot of products like the Hailey Bieber smoothie, or the fact that they're selling Emma Chamberlain's coffee. That probably gives Erewhon the permission to be able to charge some egregious prices. But as I was walking through the store, one of the things I realized and looked at and noticed is when you see things like the meats.
Erewhon.
We have the meats.
On my farm in Vermont, we raise ducks, geese, chickens, cattle, trees, pigs. We make our own maple syrup. We do it at an extremely small scale. I work insanely hard to make sure that each animal on our farm leads a good life. And if they're being raised for meat, they only have one bad day. So based on what I've been able to research, a lot of the farms that are raising the meat that's sold at Erewhon aren't drastically different in their farming practices versus how we're doing things over at Goldshaw Farm. And so when it comes to the meat over at Erewhon, let me do some apples to apples comparison for how much it costs me to raise an animal on my farm and how much I'm charging versus the steaks inside Erewhon, which might require you to take out a second mortgage. And who would have thought that meat would be another thing that people who rent are financially excluded from in life?
Hey, Erewhon, come on down!
And welcome to The Price is Right, folks, where today we're going to be talking about Erewhon products compared to my rinky-dink little farm here in northern Vermont. So the first category of comparison is grass-fed beef, where you have beef that is raised on pasture and fed a diet that is 100% exclusively grass-fed. First off, we have the ribeye steak. Here at Goldshaw Farm, we sell a ribeye steak at $20 a pound. From Erewhon, though, $37.32 per pound. At Goldshaw Farm, we sell a New York strip for $21 a pound. The Erewhon price, $38.65 per pound. And now what about the ever versatile ground beef? It's a kitchen staple that you can use to make virtually anything. The Goldshaw Farm grass-fed ground beef price is $11 per pound. The Erewhon price? $13.99. That's actually kind of reasonable. I mean, when you think about it, right? It's pretty much the same product as my grass-fed beef. And you have to recognize you're buying it in a much more expensive market, and there's a lot of different hands that have touched it to get it to the grocery store, so it actually seems like a reasonable price increase. And speaking of reasonable price increases, let's talk about the filet. What does a good filet go for from Goldshaw Farm? Well, we're usually selling our filets at about $30 a pound, but the Erewhon price is $52.99. That might be a little extreme, but it is an extreme cut of meat. Now don't forget to spay and neuter your pets, folks. What is Erewhon?
A super bougie Gelson.
I was gonna say bougie.
Yeah.
It's very like LA grocery store. I'd say it's kind of
Calabasas vibes.
unnecessary, but
Super unnecessary.
good.
What's good about it?
I feel like it's just really fresh. Like all of their
Their
foods and,
hot
like, smoothies.
Yeah, their hot food bar is really good, but it's not like worth the price. I wouldn't say.
It's really expensive.
It's really, really expensive.
But if you got that guap,
yeah, but if you got the money for it, then why not?
And now I know that there's going to be folks out there watching this video and saying, oh my gosh, both your prices and Erewhon's prices are insane.
I can just go to the Safeway and get a pack of ground beef for $3.99.
But therein lies the dilemma. If you want food that is raised the right way, that is good for the planet, that is good for the animal, and that's good for you, you're often going to have to pay higher prices. You know, as a farmer, as I'm setting the prices for my products, I'm trying to do it in a way where I'm recognizing the cost that it takes to raise it as well as recognize what people can actually pay for it, and try to strike a balance between charging a fair price for all individuals involved. But if you look at the household incomes of most Americans, the way I'm pricing my products is completely unreachable for those folks. Practically any foodstuff that is produced in an organic or sustainable or regenerative or small scale way is going to be almost unattainable for most consumers. And that is the real problem. Because if I'm fairly evaluating the prices of a lot of products from Erewhon, they're not as crazy as you might think. But that said, there are some really ridiculous things that people buy at Erewhon that are totally not worth it. Like, for example, if you're going to Erewhon to buy your firewood, you are observably stupid. Furthermore, one of the products that I saw on the Erewhon shelves that shocked me was the prices that they are charging for bone broths. Whether it be chicken stock or beef stock or using bison, the prices were upwards of $20 a jar just for some chicken stock or beef stock or whatever. And what I don't think most people appreciate is just how easy it is to make your own bone broths.
This here dirty old bag of bones was my partner for 30 years.
I basically just keep a bag of bones in the freezer. Over the course of a week or two, I usually build up enough collection of bones that I then just toss those bones into my crock pot and let it run for 24 hours. And I usually end up with so much bone broth that I'm feeding it to my dogs as part of their dog food. And in fact, if you are out there on a budget and seeing some of those food products that they have at Erewhon and you want to experience those things but you don't have the wallet to do it on a regular basis, maybe you want to focus in on doing certain things like buying larger cuts of meat. Like, for example, rather than buying just skinless, boneless chicken breasts, buy a whole chicken. Then you can part that chicken up. You'll have several pieces of chicken that you can use to make several meals. And then you can take all of the leftover bones that you have from your chicken, put them in a crock pot for 24 hours, and then you have your own bone broth. And so a good responsibly raised chicken from Erewhon is gonna cost you about $25. When you break that chicken down into its subsequent parts, you're gonna probably end up finding yourself with about $60 worth of value just from that one chicken. I think most consumers are so focused on the convenience factor of things that you're missing the opportunities that exist to save a few dollars. And so in and of itself, that is also worth exploring.
Erewhon's the grocery store for the influencers. It's like all about aesthetic, and I mean, there's no, if you walk in there, you're gonna spend $1,000. You can't avoid it.
Go to Erewhon, people know you're rich. It's more to show your status. It's on my bucket list to go this year just to feel like a super rich person, you know? So yeah, this year.
After spending several hours wandering several different Erewhons, I eventually decided to go meet my friend Josh for lunch.
Josh is a chef and he's a great food creator.
This is the egg that I eat. This is my favorite egg right here.
There you go.
Do you know how much these are?
I can find out for you.
Yeah.
$10.99.
$10.99? Awesome.
Thank you.
So what are you usually paying for that?
$7.99.
Yeah, see.
But they're really delicious, you know?
All right, so at my farm, I'll sell a half dozen duck eggs like that.
Yeah.
For about $6 a pop, $5 a pop, depending on who's buying.
Okay, so not that much more.
It's not crazy, and that's what's interesting to me. What's actually, take a look at it. Actually, let's look at them. I'm curious to see how clean they are. So duck eggs are always historically very dirty.
Yeah, they're a bit dirty.
Yeah. I mean they're washed, but
so
like, they come out filthy.
Eat these regular, like.
So the crazy part is I am a duck farmer who is allergic to duck eggs.
How are you allergic to duck eggs?
What did you end up getting for lunch?
It's like a turkey Reuben.
Oh, that looks pretty. So isn't that a Rachel?
Is that what it's called?
I think a turkey Reuben, or maybe I feel like a Rachel is like a Reuben with turkey instead of like pastrami. All right, well I've got, let's see, a sushi special, a little sushi nigiri, tuna nigiri, and then Space Tea Zero. It's a mushroom tea, reishi and lion's mane.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Lion's mane is like the biggest thing right now.
And while I won't tell you guys what Josh and I talked about during our lunch, I will tell you that I spent $28.02 on just my lunch, which absolutely is an insane price to pay for supermarket sushi. Thanks for watching, everybody.